I see the walls, then see them fall. We break through them all. I see you crawl, now you stand tall.
My name is Mary McKellar, and I'm an infectious diseases physician, and I am a HIV provider, but I'm also the medical director of our PrEP clinic.
So I'm Gordon Lipscomb. I'm a licensed clinical social worker.
Well, my name is Hector Salgado, and I'm the executive director of the Alliance of AIDS Services.
So North Carolina, unfortunately, is in the top 10 states in terms of HIV diagnoses. And Durham, specifically, is in the top 25 metropolitan areas for highest prevalence of HIV. So we've actually seen the numbers of new infections go up in certain high-risk groups. And those risk groups include young people, people under the age of 24, and then also men who have sex with men, so homosexual men or bisexual men, and then specifically African Americans. Latinos also is another group that we're worried about in terms of numbers going up.
Just sitting in this chair and seeing people that come through and not looking at the statistics, looking at the demographics that way. I certainly see that group coming through here a lot. Also, a smaller number of older MSMs, and by older I mean 40s, 50s, 60s, people who've been dealing with HIV for a lifetime. That's another sort of group, people who have positive partners, even some.
They face a lot of challenges, unfortunately. Again, HIV is a manageable chronic disease, but when people have, what I tell people when I have to give positive results is, I grab a gallon of water and I'll put a pin in it, right? And then you'll see a small drip, and I'll say, this is you, and this is HIV, right? As you can see, it's not, you're not gonna die from one day to the next. It's a slow drip that you can manage if you take your medications, if you live a healthy lifestyle. I said, but take a box of pins out. I was like, this is drugs, this is alcohol, this is smoking, unhealthy eating habits, and you keep on putting pins in there, and then you see all the water starting to come out. And that is, by definition, what HIV does, right? So there's this giant stigma around HIV that exists, that it pushes people deeper into the closet. If people that were HIV positive had a space where they could come out and say, I'm HIV positive and it does not make me any of the following things. It's a second coming out process where people need support.
No, I mean, that is one thing, I can talk about how much HIV has changed since I've been doing this over the years, and it's, we talked about that as far as the medical stuff goes. The stigma piece really, it has changed, but it has not kept pace with the medical change at all. And it probably, you named it, it's the biggest barrier to people getting tested still, to people getting treatment still, and probably for PrEP. It's just a huge, huge, huge barrier. And how do you get rid of it? I don't know, other than keep doing what we're doing, which is talk.
And I feel like there's such a stigma that people think that if you have a condom or if you use condoms, then that means that you're really sexually active and that you fall under these categories A, B, C, and that's just simply not the case. And that kind of mentality is what's really holding us back, and it's perpetuating the spread of HIV. Somebody will ask somebody, instead of asking them if they're HIV positive or not, they'll ask them, are you clean? So does that mean that somebody that's HIV positive is dirty?
We have a lot of things out there for prevention, namely condoms. There's also testing, so people can keep testing on a frequent basis, especially people who are at high risk. There's circumcision, there's, for IV drug users, there's needle exchange. And then actually an important part of prevention is putting positive persons on medicines. If you can make a positive person's virus undetectable, actually the chance of transmission is nil. So those are all things that are great for prevention.
We know that condoms are certainly effective in preventing HIV, but we also know with 35 years of experience and human behavior that that's not a practical solution for everybody all the time. And so while condoms are not right for everybody, PrEP is not right for everybody, you need as many tools in the arsenal as you can possibly have.
The most effective thing that we can do for our clients is meet them where they are. If I have a client who's telling me that they are a sex worker and that they are never using protection because the clients don't prefer it, then my goal, I can't sit here and say you always have to use a condom every time. But what I can say is, like, I understand you're not using protection for oral sex. Can we talk about, using some protection for anal sex? Who would you consider to be and it's a gradual battle that it's winnable. But that's what I mean when I say I think we have the right approach.
Jump into lakes, the surface breaks, we swim under.
When I came to this clinic, about 25% of our patients died every year. We actually met once a week to read over the names of our patients who had died that week. It really, as a clinical social worker, the job was about death and dying. It was about making sure people had the resources and had what they needed to get the most out of the limited amount of time that they had left.
One of the biggest needs I feel is something really basic, which is just education around HIV prevention, which can only happen if we began having conversations about sex. Conversations that for a lot of people they've never had before, and they're never able to have when they leave this space, right? If they're closeted, if they're not surrounded by peers that support them, it can get crazy sometimes, but it is a healthy way to have conversations so that we can take the stigma out of a lot of things. Because everybody asks, oh, so you can't catch HIV from making out with somebody that's positive? I was like, no. God, it's 2016. It's also about building a sense of community. Because for some people, they just feel like there's so many apps out there, and this is what it's become. You meet somebody through Grindr, Growler, and then you hook up and you have sex, and that definition of community becomes sex or the clubs, and there's so much more to it than that.
It's a lot of work to be done, though. Stigma is huge in the South. I mean, in the world, but really in the South. And not just about having HIV, but even about HIV prevention, which blows my mind. I would love for this to be, like taking birth control. And I think with birth control, there was a lot of stigma in the beginning too, and there probably still is stigma in certain families. But I don't think it's that dissimilar from birth control. And so we're working on those things.
To be able to see, from not even knowing what HIV was, or, this new thing that didn't even have a name and couldn't be diagnosed, there was no test for it, and then all the way through the combination therapy, and then to be at the point where we are now, where if people are on their meds, they're not going to transmit HIV to someone else. I mean, treatment as prevention, and now adding PrEP on. I mean, it really is amazing to me that we're where we are.